G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talks After Ukraine War Update for the 24th of November 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Elsbound, and the Erotic Tales from the Empire, Part 1 out now, Part 2 coming soon. And actually I've written more than Part 2, I've got a lot to come. And of course, I do other projects. All my links are in the link tree. And I appreciate all those who support the channel. Support the channel through Ko-Fi, Patreon, and buying my books, buying my merch. All my links are in the link tree. Now, before I get to the major news, which of course I think a lot of people want to know about the US-Ukraine peace plan. First, I'll give you an update because there's actually a few things missing from this map. According to Ukraine, they attacked an oil facility in Russia, yet there's no actual details, which is unusual. Now, I do think it does refer to a drone strike in Krasnodar, here in Western Russia, which is actually, let's see, is it 2 days old? No. Yeah. See, here's the problem. This map ain't working properly today either. So, I don't know what's going on, but I swear this was here yesterday. Perhaps the way the news cycle is working, they maybe, again, back to repeating stories, which is not a good sign. But there's definitely been fighting here in the north above Sumy. Now, Russia has begun early. It's about twice a week, they do a massive drone strike, but they do drone strike Ukraine every day. It's just they hit the cities big. Now, primarily they take out communications hubs, power stations, power generators, small ones, not the big ones. It's cheaper and easier for them to blow up the power distribution nodes than it is to try and destroy the entire power station, particularly when power stations, they have air defenses, and it takes a lot of materials, and Russian doctrine, I think a lot of people don't understand it. I've tried to explain it before. It's a weird situation where they want to minimize the long-term damage. Okay, so they'll take out a power node because it's short-term damage. And I know a lot of people out there only want me to confirm their bias. They want me to tell them how evil Russia's the evil empire that's out to conquer Ukraine and stuff like that. I don't know that, and I don't know where these commentators get their comments from. You ask a lot of these Ukrainian glazers, a lot of them are boomers who've never fought a war in their life. They've never, they seem to think that this war is some glorious comeback. We're going to show Russia what we're made of. No, you're not. You're not fighting this war. This is the problem. And if you can't see the problem, they are imprinting themselves on the Ukraine war so they can feel like they are winning against Russia. They're living vicariously through these different causes. They only support Ukraine because they want a underdog story, so they can feel like little them is beating up the mean Donald Trump and Putin. We're beating him up. We're winning. Well, you're not. Now, in the past, Russia has been stuck here at Voshk. I know that's not the entire... and they've got around it. They've taken half of it, right? They've got around the Ukrainian, and they've made further advances today. The Russian army has also made a little bit of progress, but not much here in Kupiansk. But for the most part, it's block. It's measured. Advances are measured in blocks, but they are making advances. Sorry about the music in the background. I have very inconsiderate neighbours, and I hope my YouTube channel doesn't get strike. It's because some asshole wants to play things at volume 11. Alright, so we have some, but not much progress here near Lyman. Now the Russians are in Seversk, but only a bit in the south here, but they haven't made any progress. They made a little bit of progress here in the south, but not much. Now we go to Chavis Yar. There's fighting, but nothing really of consequence. Now we have a little bit of fighting here in Kosk, but no advancing. Now again, we have no fighting. No advancing, despite the fighting here in Battle Group Center. Though we've seen this before, where they'll be fighting for weeks, sometimes months, and then there'll be massive progress. Right now we don't see where the situation is going, but for the Ukrainians trapped here, supplies allegedly running low. There's still allegedly 5,000 Ukrainians trapped in POC. And as we continue in the map, the Russians are now back to grinding. After making a big breakthrough here in the last couple of days, they've made no progress. They've made alleged progress here and here, but most of the progress here yesterday is now a grind against the northern part of Hulapol. I know I'm not saying these right, but the Ukrainians are still holding on to some areas here, preventing the Russian. They're only slowing the Russian advance. Now there's still renewed fighting. The Russians made some progress, but not much. And in the rest of the map, there's really nothing to report. You know, the tit for tats at Kherson, fighting here over a river crossing that neither side can control. It's an actual narrow bend here. And here there's boat graveyards. And up here the Russians have what you basically would call fire control over most of the bank. And indeed, the Russian army is setting up to flood down and flank Kherson. But for now, they are been holding here at the river, Novopol, and then on the other side without making... Now, in the past, Ukraine blew the dam to try and flood this area to stop the Russians from flanking them at Zaporozhye and Mariupol and that. But, of course, now they are fresh out of ideas what to do. They've constantly complained about Russia attacking infrastructure. They've constantly blown up their own dams and blamed this on Russia. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people have just tuned out and are just sitting there basically cheering on this war, hoping that they can get some personal victory. But they're not fighting this war. They're not there. Right? And liberals don't even put their money where their mouth is. They want others to send their money to Ukraine. Of course. At the heart of every liberal is a spoilt brat. You know, nothing is their responsibility. They take all the credit. You know, the usual childish tantrums. But what we do have is Marco Rubio is in Geneva, behind closed doors, having talks with Ukraine on the plan to end the war. He has made claims that he's made tremendous progress, that he is talking with Ukrainian officials who don't want they want the war to end, but they don't want it to end the way Trump has requested. But they've agreed that they will end the war. Now, one thing Ukraine wants is Russia to fully uphold Ukraine's sovereignty. Now, again, this is details that have to be refined. Again, they didn't define what Ukrainian sovereignty would look like. Exactly how they're going to force Russia to give Zelensky... this is another Zelensky moment where he says, not 1 inch of Ukraine will go to the orcs! Orcs, I tell you! You know, I'm Zelensky. I get my way all the time. You know, this is the problem. Okay? Now, again, they want assurances for Ukraine's stability, security, and reconstruction. Minsk Accords. Ukraine had the opportunity to guarantee its security, to guarantee its stability and reconstruction. Instead, they chose war. Again and again and again. In 22, peace deal. Yeah, we'll sign it. Then they don't. 23, yeah, we'll sign it. Then they don't. 24 rolls over, and then they start whining that nobody's coming to help them. Help me, help me, help me. We're, you know, after a year of claiming they're winning, they go, oh, please come help me. Now, on paper, right, Ukraine has the numerical superiority on paper. They allegedly had the tank power, the air power, right? Russia was only fighting with one arm behind its back and the other, you know, and the Russian drone strikes were managed, but then they just seemed to go all out with these huge, spectacular, you know, every time they saw a drone, they'd fire a barrage of missiles, you know, like not one, a barrage. They'd light up the night sky. Missiles were fired at Poland, missiles were falling on apartment buildings, and the Ukrainian hear no evil, see no evil, childish mob would just say Russia, Russia, Russia every time. It's getting monotonous. But the thing is, Ukrainians, Europeans, you know, basically the liberal establishment are obtuse. You cannot reason with them, you cannot bargain with them, and nothing you say will be accepted, okay? You can tell Zelensky the sky is blue, or go outside and come back and say, hey, Dave, you know the sky is blue? You know, that's the kind of moron mentality we're dealing with. But I get it. Every diplomat's got to say this. We've made tremendous progress. I mean, I've heard it for 75 years. I've heard, you know, 75 years of history we've had, right? I've heard it every year of my life. Every history book has got it, you know. We've made tremendous progress, you know, Arab-Israeli conflict. We've made tremendous progress. Negotiations from 1948 onwards, like, over and over again. And then at the height of the talks at Geneva, they all turn around and attack Israel. But people out there can say, no, everything's Israel's fault. And then, you know, everything's Ukraine's fault. No, it's a handful of people. And it's the same people every time, but it's a handful of people. Right? And the problem is that the majority out there will rush to a side and then totally ignore the crimes of their side. Those who hate Israel, Britain has polluted itself with Marxism and just cannot be reasoned with anymore. They've become so unreasonable. And when humanity becomes unreasonable, war is inevitable. We're not making progress towards peace, we're making progress towards annihilation. Because liberals just cannot be told they're wrong. They always have to get you for something. Joe Biden has dementia. What happens when the next president gets in? President Trump has dementia. Because they have to get revenge on you. They just can't let things go. They don't want peace. They're undermining this by constantly sending messages of support to Ukraine to keep fighting. What if we gave up without you putting power? Or what if we gave up after the, you know? What if we gave up after Pearl Harbor? You know, Now, after a while, the lack of gratitude from Ukraine, you're just being selfish. You just want the peace prize. You just come and you just want the peace prize. You ego can't handle not getting the peace prize. The moron mentality, right? We have the guy who nominated and voted for Obama to get the peace prize turn around and say he regrets it. Because at the time he thought it would shape US foreign policy, and actually that that they liked Obama coming in because he made all these promises, but he never kept one. And liberals just say, and so what do we get with Trump? He never keeps his promises. He can't be trusted. He can't keep his word. This constant projection of their failures and their dishonesty onto others is getting monotonous. But finally, when Zelensky might have actually realised that he's in deep shit, actually suddenly finds his gratitude and actually realises that he has to choose between losing his dignity and losing a key partner. But Europe is calling Trump's bluff and saying, no, the peace plan has to respect their dignity, their destiny. They get to choose their destiny. You didn't choose, Serbia didn't get to choose its destiny. You went in there and kicked them in the googlies and said you have to give this territory to foreign invaders. Because they're brown people. You have to give to the brown people. Obviously, the Russians get a vote. And according to Ursula von der Leyen's having an epileptic shock. But that's how war works. After all, did you not go into Iran, Iraq, Syria? Of course, Iran was a huge failure, and Americans don't want to admit that, but Iran was one of your first interventions. Back in the actually, it was during World War II when you had your little intervention in Iran to make sure that oil wouldn't end up in the hands of the Germans. And then basically helped Russia seize Azerbaijan and give the oil to the Russians, all because Putin and Roosevelt Roosevelt and Stalin had a handshake deal and a phone call in which they agreed to divide up the world between communism, capitalism, and let the best man win in a race for a new world order. They engineered World War II, and people just go, "Oh, you must be drunk, Dave. What are you smoking?" See, the problem is, liberals are children. So if they learn 1 + 1 = 3, and you tell them no, that 1 + 1 = 2, they'll argue to the end of their life that 1 + 1 = 3, and that the sky is red and the party is always right. But for a final peace settlement, you got to tell the winners, okay, you don't want Putin to win this war? Go fight it. See how well you do. Because I'm telling you, the Russians are stronger than you think, but they're weaker than they claim. There's always that overconfidence. And again, you ask, you can't anymore, but you ask some of the generals from the Vietnam era, overconfidence. Right? The soldiers were walking around, swinging their dicks, saying, "Oh, we got this in the bag. We won World War II." And don't forget about the disaster of Korea, and the embarrassment of that was the forced withdrawal from Iran. Honestly, it is absolutely beyond belief, with all this evidence in front of them, but they don't listen, they don't watch, they don't hear what they want, they don't hear like you and I, right? They only cherry pick what benefits them. It's like they'll read the Bible and then they go, look, a rich man can't go to heaven unless he can unless he gives up all his wealth. That's all they care about, is finding ways to hurt others. And these assholes get into positions of power like Ursula von der Leyen, and they conspire with the bureaucracy to create more bureaucracy and more bureaucracy. Have you ever seen a government other than Trump? I think there have been a couple of times, but of course the glorious fascist dictator Roosevelt, he built up the massive bureaucracy. Of course, that's when America started getting addicted to solving the jobless crisis by hiring people, and they found out that you could hold these jobs over people's head, and there's nothing the Republicans can do about it. And that's how they turned red cities blue, was Union Hall, right? Telling people, you got no job on the waterfront unless we see you vote blue. If our candidate don't win, we're going to slash the waterfront. And then they blame capital, but most of these waterfront disputes, all election rigging. A lot of workers, they won't admit it, but they know, and they groan as soon as they hear the word general strike, because they're going to lose money. So they vote how they're told to vote, because they don't want to strike, because you don't get paid. You try and tell people that, though, and they argue, right? As if they've got all this life experience, right? Where nobody's evil on the left. No, they have only good intentions. Stalin was just misunderstood. He was doing a hard job. He had a hard time. He was trying to rebuild the country after the Nazis. He had to root out the Nazis. Really? Spanish Inquisition had to root out all the people involved in the slave trade and the rape and the systematic murder and genocide of Spanish people, and then they flip out and just call you an anti-Semite. Because, we all know, Jews and Arabs never accept responsibility. They're all about their face. Ask Chuck Schumer a question and see how he spins it, Ask him about his ties to Epstein, or any of them and their ties to Epstein. Or ask Biden about Epstein in Ukraine, and it's always the but Trump argument, the evil orange man, well, what's more important? All of a sudden the past doesn't matter. Now all of a sudden you can't change maps by force. Really? Can't change maps by force. Tell that to Kosovo. Yugoslavia. Heck, carving up of Germany. Changing the German borders. Giving land to Poland. Taking away the German state of Carlsberg and giving it to the Russians. Who still have it, by the way. Let the Poles claim it, but it was actually German. was most of the ethnic Germans throughout Eastern Europe were, don't talk about the ethnic cleansing of Germans because they're Nazis. That's justified. The left, they always got a justification for their side, or they call you a Putin bot, or they just say that's Russian misinformation. Really, we're telling you the Russians committed war crimes. Oh, but the Soviets, sorry. No. Ask Bernie Sanders. You talk about Russian collusion. Really, when Ted Kennedy was on the phone with the head of the KGB and having meetings with the KGB, we even have RFK confirming that KGB used to come around regularly to talk to Robert, his father. But those were different times, And of course, now, he suddenly realizes that, oh, jeez, was not a good thing to do. But this is the thing. People actually often, without thinking, will tell you the truth. But they're caught off guard because they don't think about the long-term consequences where they talk about security guarantees. You know who talks about security guarantees? Little child. I can't sleep, Daddy. Please, Daddy. Is there a monster under the bed, Daddy? Is what Europe's doing. Daddy Trump, please. Daddy Trump, protect us, Daddy Trump. But then they insult him over and over again. Of course, kicking Europe to the curb, they'll go straight to the Chinese and say, Daddy Trump, you're our new Daddy G. You watch. Now, there are different reports about the peace plan. Yesterday they were reporting 600,000. Today they were reporting 800,000. But according to the US, it was 600,000. But it looks like they've got Ukraine has got that up to 800,000, which is the combat size of the Russian army. Now, combat size is the number of troops under arms. Because a lot of people don't understand military. You don't just have guys with guns. You have training officers. You have logistics officers. You have cooks and drivers. And by golly gee, do you know how big the US Army bureaucracy is? There are more soldiers with pens and paper than sidearms. There are more nurses at a base hospital than some of the staff on those bases. It's ridiculous how bureaucratic some armies are. And that's pretty much par for the course with most of the world, though. Now, Peter from Hungary has travelled to Brussels to meet with the EU Foreign Council to discuss with his European colleagues the peace plan in which Peter is the foreign minister of Hungary, and he wants to urge EU leaders to stop hindering the peace plan. Now, he's encouraging dialogue and hopes that the Americans will engage with dialogue with the Russian side soon. Yesterday, I thought they had spoken to them. No, they've only spoken to the Russian representative. That's the representative, the Russian Investment Bureau. No, not Investment Bureau. What's it called? I actually think it's the Russian Investment House. But I forget its actual name because it is in Russian. But the Russian Investment House are the brokers for the Russian-US peace deal, which may include the Ukrainian peace deal. But if Ukraine doesn't sign a peace deal, Russia wants to still get at least the... is it nuclear? I don't think it's salt or start free. I think it's a new one called the denuclearization, basically to reduce the number of strategic weapons globally, to try and rein in some of the smaller countries into non-proliferation. Because at one stage we had anywhere from 14 to 28 countries with nuclear weapons, and today we have anywhere up to 32 countries who possibly at least have the technology, who have not got the bomb. It's not exactly known how many countries have a nuclear weapon or not. We know that France, Britain have admitted to it. Israel has not formally admitted to it, although they've threatened to use them if in case, what's it called? The Goliath option or something. Of course, we have Iran. Russia wants to do something there because Iran needs to, they are desperately short of energy, and this is because, not because they have a nuclear plant or don't have one, it's because their entire system is so inefficient, but the only way to overhaul it is to basically rebuild it, and that takes energy to rebuild it. You've got to have a function. They don't have a functioning nuclear reactor that produces power, and they lied for so long that nobody wants to trust them. So there's going to be difficulties there. Like, when I say this is a difficult process, it's because everybody wants to put everything in. Europe wants to save its face and say, yeah, we can't have the Iran deal fall apart. Sorry, Ursula, but you were lied to, and you don't want to admit to you were lied to. The Iranians don't want to admit they lied. The Russians don't want to admit the Iranians lied. Nobody wants to admit they lied. So why lie if you're not going to admit to it when you're caught out? Because there's always, some random retard on the internet who's going to believe your lies, right? There's always somebody on the left who wants to stick it to the Republicans and support Iran, I got you good, says Ted Kennedy, That mentality of getting someone is and Ursula strikes me as that kind of snide, they call it uncompromising, right? But nah, you're toxic, okay? You're a toxic cow who just wants to hurt others to feel good, They don't have a plan. They just don't. This is the problem. Bruce Rubio is coming in with a plan, and he's asked them, well, nobody else has got one, and looks around the room, and Ursula just, this is the problem. Look at her face, man. How dare you? The Queen is speaking. It's the guy in the back is I don't care. I'm just going to take notes. I don't care. Here's the problem, though. 32% of the population are morons. And they vote for morons. They vote to destroy the planet. They vote to destroy their country and their culture because we have to fight the patriarchy, comrades. And what happens? They invite the patriarchy in and say, come up and build more mosques and churches. Yeah, we'll tear down this old 350-year-old church so you can build a mega mosque. No worries, bro. Oh, you raped a couple of kids? No worries, says Keir Starmer. We can forgive that. What? You nailed a girl's tongue to the table. And the guy just says, so? And, he doesn't, instantly have him hauled off for crimes against humanity? Seriously, Keir Starmer? And these are the people that the left are cheering to stand up to Trump. They can't stand up to a bunch of savages from the Stone Age who rape children. They stand with rapists and thugs and bullies and serial killers rather than Trump because he's not one of the establishment. That is how evil liberalism has become. And liberals will say, no, we're classical liberals. Or the socialists will say, we're democratic socialists. Yeah. So was Hitler, you muppets. Hitler didn't go around telling everybody, hey guys, I'm evil, I'm going to do evil things. No, he went around promising everything that everybody wanted. And then they say, oh, look, he just said the orange man. That's what the orange man did. Orange man. No, actually, Trump did not go around promising everything that everybody wanted. He had a clear, consistent plan of policies that he has had before he ran for president. He was always saying, got to put America first. Got to put your house in order, which goes back to Lincoln. You got to put your house in order first. You can't help others if you can't help yourself. Right? All this toxic empathy. Like, you can't save everybody. Jesus said that to Mark. You know? How can you run a farm, give everything away, and then grow another crop? Oh, God will provide. You know, like, they will basically watch the world basically starve to death. Because at the core of every liberal, right, academics don't want to work. They want to academic. They want to read their poetry. They want to debate Marx. They want to study the hoot owl of northern Canada so they could contribute to the sum of knowledge or some ethereal academic excuse. We have hundreds of thousands of academics producing papers every year. None of those papers ever get read once they're published. Okay? A handful of people might have read Fauci's document on coronavirus. And nobody would know about the coronavirus or the development, and there would be no development of a vaccine because the coronavirus, when Fauci wrote about it, had been written off along with many other viruses. And then, of course, you have, this ice specialist who spent 9 months studying the ice fields of some far-off country, right? He ran out of money. He's staying in expensive hotels, taking pictures of ice fields every day. That's his job. He got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it, but when his fund ran out of money, he didn't want to pay the $3,000 return ticket. And he wouldn't go economy because I had extra luggage on my camera equipment. This is what academics do. So you really think all these liberals who are screaming Russia, Russia, Russia are fair-minded, are honest, are open-minded, they're open to debate, they're willing to change their mind? Bill Maher says he's always open to change his mind, but you tune in next week and it's rinse and repeat. Telling the next guy, oh, you're wrong, I'm going to change my mind. He's grifting. Every liberal does this. They get old and they start grifting. They start losing their audience. You really think Stephen King writes his own tweets or even wrote his own books? He can barely walk. He speaks with a stutter and a slur. The ideas might be running around his head, but trust me, I've seen people in that mental state. I've seen people shaking like that. There's no way he's even aware of what Twitter is anymore. So you think that these so-called thought leaders, and you really think Hassan Piker is popular and a good person? Guy sits in a $3 million mansion. It's all bought publicity. It's all botting. Okay? You look at the handful of support. You look at some live streams where there's almost nobody. And then when the US is asleep, there's suddenly all this. See, the real people who often, all right, and this is what it is, they get these streamers, they constantly mention them in the media so that wannabes tune in and watch them, right? And then they try to mimic them to become popular, and it never happens because the algorithms will never promote you because you are the victim. You're not, okay? And the sooner people learn and to critical think, the better. So that when you see whether it's Russia lying or Ukraine lying or America lying, it's not going to affect you. You're not going to lose your cool. You're not going to freak out and go to X and speak your mind to other people who are just going to yell at you. You're not going to yell at yell. You know what's the worst thing you could do to a liberal? No engagement. Block them. Yeah. If they don't get engagement, they freak out. Narcissists, they can't handle silence. Trying to educate people, though, they'll give me the silent treatment, which is weird. I know, right? I get the silent treatment from people because I don't say what they want. But then when you tell them, well, why are you engaging ABC, right? Joy Behar doesn't read the news. Joy Behar's a thief. She isn't going to. She stole a vase. Probably only worth $3,000 at best, and that's overpriced. It's probably a $50 vase from China, but it doesn't matter. She stole a vase, and then cried that she didn't get to keep her souvenir. It was going to be thrown out anyway, according to her, which was a lie. It was a prop for a set, and she liked it. She wanted it. It couldn't be bought elsewhere or replaced because it was a once-off from a prop studio. Right, it was the last one left in the prop studio. Instead of going to an artist and say, "Here is $8,000. Reproduce this vase for me. I got $27 million from Disney. I am the rich bitch." But no, she has to go on TV and cry that she's misunderstood, that she's not a thief. Well, she's a thief. But these are the people telling you to hate on Russia. Now, is Russia lying? Well, I'll show you something that gives away every time, right? Misinformation will depend, not does depend, or it depends. Everything depends on the outcome of something else. All right? That's basically deflecting. Our dialogue has to continue. Delaying. Okay, so Russia is deflecting and delaying and saying, we have not received official notification. No, because negotiations are still ongoing. And Marco Rubio said, hey, we're going to tell you, yeah, once we know what Kiev wants, but Russia has said that could, that's another weasel word, could, not does, will, or maybe. When something is non-confirming, it's non-committal, and non-committal is is made up of weasel words of if, maybe, will, could, likely, we'll see, basically. You walk past your neighbour, say, hi neighbour, how's it going? Do you want to come over later? We'll see. And he doesn't come over, and you're not surprised. Well, why then are you surprised when liberals are non-committal, when Chuck Schumer wants you to commit firmly to Ukraine because it's our obligation, firmly commit to Israel because it's our obligation? What about the southern border? We'll see. It's our obligation. See? Once you know, weasels always snake oil salesman, right? You had comes in three parts. You have the presentation, right? They present you something really nice on the surface, shiny. I have Ukraine. It's full of oil. You will want to care about Ukraine because they are victims. But then, of course, after the presentation comes a commitment. How do you save Ukraine? You have to commit. You have to commit manpower and money and your time and your effort. So the quality of your life goes down, but then they say, oh, but helping others will make you feel better. So that's cope. There's your first weasel, the cope. So then comes the third part. The third part is where they always turn on you. The third part is always the betrayal. You never did enough. You always have to give more. It's never enough. The starving children in Africa after 50 years are still starving. India, their population has gone from 250 million to 1.5 billion, but the starving kids of India have to be fed. Even though they're the third largest economy in the world, they have nuclear weapons and they have aircraft carriers and they have the sixth largest air force in the world. You still have to give. It is your duty. Give. They persecute Christians. Give. After 50 years of saying, if we treat them nicely, they will treat Christians nicely. Same with Pakistan. We all had to give. Always the betrayal, okay? It's always your fault. You did not give enough. You did not treat them nicely. You have to give up. You have to take their countries are overpopulated. We had to take some of them in to teach them a better life. Wait a minute, weren't you teaching? It's always never ending. And yes, what has happened is a lot of that had to do with Russia and America competing for basically the New World Order. Now that Russia wants to peel away from the New World Order, Europeans go, no, you have to obey us or we will insult you. And Putin gives them the middle finger. NATO, isn't it funny? The left, who hate NATO, France, who wanted to leave NATO, suddenly go, NATO, you have to protect Ukraine's borders. Well, why aren't you protecting your borders against the Africans? Or why aren't you protecting your citizens from the rape gangs? And they will say, you're being an Islamophobe. This is the betrayal stage. Alright? First it's the kindness, you have to be kind, then you have to give. You know, it's always the never-ending grift. Friends, we are on the precipice. I think you all know it, but I still think that you have grifters, so many grifters out there. I don't think Tucker Carlson woke up one morning and says, you know what, we're giving too much money to Israel. No. Which is the real Tucker Carlson? Right? For 20 years, he was the guy who couldn't be cucked. Stood up to liberalism. Now, he's cozying up to Jimmy Dore and all these others, and you can't. And this is like hard for people to be genuine, to build a genuine audience, because the people who have the fame and the power, they're just betraying everything, and somehow they can get an audience of 100 million. Yet they're not genuine? Or are they genuine now and they weren't genuine in the past? Is there going to be a peace agreement or not? There's going to be an agreement. We've seen how tenacious Trump can be. But whether or not he can force Putin and Ukraine into agreement, as long as Europe keeps kicking Trump in the shins and saying, no, it has to be our agreement. What's going to happen is that come after midterms, they're going to give up and walk away. This is what they've done before. Look at Kosovo, right? Once once they've done enough, once the destruction is, there's nothing left to destroy, Ukraine's on its knees. This is what they're doing. They're destroying Ukraine. They're prolonging the war to destroy Ukraine, and Ukraine doesn't get it. Maybe Zelensky does. I don't know. I'm only speculating that he does. Because he does appear now to at least have some awareness that this war has to end, or he has no Ukraine, or may lose his life. But he doesn't seem to understand that a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield will not matter. Okay? Putin gets a phone call. There's 6,000 tanks. They've just broken our lines. Putin says, how many missiles we got in the silo? Launch the Iskanders. We've got them on standby. The Orsk missile will hold back. See what happens. And they'll blow any European army out of the battlefield. No, while he's and 20 million Russians go into the bunkers, and on the way in, they just press the button, Armageddon. I've told people so many times Russia's a sore loser. China's a sore loser. American liberals are sore losers. European liberals are sore losers. The best way to have peace is good fences, good neighbours, right? And as Vlad the Impaler says, bad neighbours make good fences. See, for so long, we've wanted the elites have just so... You hear about the left always complaining about the elites putting money before people. Well, when we say, okay, in mass migration, all of a sudden, the liberal, no, we can't do that. We are living in the age of false churches, false religion, and false governments, and false friends, and false families. We're surrounded by so many phonies, and yet you tell people the best thing to do is cut liberals out of your life to basically... You can't... Afrocentrics, you think they're claiming Cleopatra was black just out of kindness to educate us? No, they're trying to erase history. Blackwash everything. Good things do not come from altering history. Orwell warned us that they will alter history so that the past, to control the future, you control the past. Okay? There was a conspiracy that the original V for Vendetta was actually black, and that the burnt man was the last white person in England. Well, I'm sorry to put that down, but no. The person who wrote V for Vendetta was was Antifa, and that it was a allegory written as an allegory for Margaret Thatcher and the whitewashing of England. It's a white country. You want to be surrounded by black people? Go live in Africa. See how long you last. See, that's the thing. They know deep down, they know they're wrong. They know if they go live in Africa, they won't last long. See, deep down, liberals are cowards. And we have to call their bluff. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you to each and every one of you. I really appreciate it. See you in the next video, and bye for now.